What's up, and welcome to Clarity for Parents of Athletes, bringing you stories from professional athletes about their parents and how they were raised. My name is Gabe from aclearmind.com. All right, and welcome to episode number 35. I hope you're staying safe, and if you're able to slow down in life, that you're enjoying the slower pace. And if you're not able to slow down, whether you're an essential worker, which I'd like to send out a very big thank you, by the way, or if you're unable to slow down for any other reason, I hope you're taking good care of yourself. And if you listened to the last couple episodes or not, I'd want to either remind you or inform you that my amazing wife, Angie, and I we're both transformative life coaches and are offering anyone at this time in life pay what you can afford option for working with either of us right now. Now, the coaching method that we perform for our clients is really grounding and healing, and I can say that as both a coach and someone who works with an amazing coach myself. And I know I've shifted my internal process from worry and stress due to my work circumstances and a lot of other things to trust and being able to enjoy the present moment with much more ease. And both Angie and I want to help you and others do the same thing. So you can reach out to me at gabe@aclearmind.com or through social media links, which you can find on my website, aclearmind.com. That's aclearmind.com. And you can connect with Angie, my wife, through her website, Enlightened Wellness FX, like Fox X-ray, fx.com. So enlightenedwellnessfx.com. And if you don't know anything about her, you can go back and listen to the episodes, the last two, number 33 and 34, because she was a guest on those episodes and spoke about nutrition. And also the last episode was a really, really powerful episode, and I urge you to go back and listen to it. But we both spoke about how you can help others during this time and a secret power that you probably don't realize that you had, which is available to everybody, which is amazing results for people in this world, not just yourself. So now, as always, I ask if you would share the podcast and also write a review on Apple Podcast, as well as rate and subscribe it. The more people do that, the more visible it is for others, and the episodes are just full of such great modeling from the athletes I've interviewed, and I hope you find the same helpfulness from the episodes with myself and the couple with Angie as well. All right. On to this episode, and I've been holding on to this one for a while due to the coronavirus pandemic and the fact that I was feeling the need to offer support to you and others in the last few episodes, but now I want to get back on track with some of the interviews. I have a few more recorded as well, and I'll release those up in the upcoming weeks. So this episode is with Brian Wiese, who is the head men's soccer coach at Georgetown University and won the 2019 national championship. Brian's done an amazing job at Georgetown and built that school and that program to be one of the elite programs year to year in the Division I men's soccer programs. So he's also guided a lot of players into the next level, professional level of soccer, and I know is a tremendous influence on wherever his players head outside of soccer, that Brian's had an amazing influence on them as well. Now, this episode, he speaks about tips for players and parents for college recruiting. And he, of course, gives us insight into his journey as an athlete and how his parents guided him along that path, something that all the athletes have done. He also gives insight into the small but hugely important details he looks for players off the field. That's right. It's not just the stuff that's on the field that counts for these players. And I think that's something I think all players and parents need to listen to, that part of the interview, because those little things can either motivate him, Brian, and his staff to either say that he needs to have that player or take the player off the list completely. So I really urge you to listen, especially to that part where he starts speaking about recruiting. All right, enjoy. All right, Brian, welcome here. I appreciate your time today, and belated congratulations to you on your national championship run last year in December.
Thanks, Gabe. Happy to join you.
Oh, good. Well, I appreciate it again. And I definitely want to get into your coaching and the national championship run, but I always like to start with kind of backtracking into my guest's life and find out what their childhood was like and their family dynamic was like. Now, kind of looking and studying you over the last few days, I can judge, or just totally taking a wild stab, that academics was probably a pretty big factor in your guys' life as a family. Just imagining.
Yeah, it was. I mean, we were really, lucky enough to go through school at the Albuquerque Academy in New Mexico, and I had two older brothers. I was the youngest of three, and I had a people talk about like childhood angst and middle school drama and this, that, and the other. I had so many positive experiences in middle school and high school, and I have nothing but great memories of my time at a what you don't really realize when you're going through it, but was just a fantastic academic environment. And I was lucky enough to be the youngest of three boys and we all went through there. So I kind of were following in people's footsteps and looking up to and admiring some of these older guys that my brothers were friends with. And I mean, it prepared me wonderfully well for college. And my career path as a coach has been kind of interestingly at really high-end academic institutions. It's been 5 years at Stanford and as an assistant, and 5 years at Notre Dame as an assistant, and now, 14 years, around 14 years, I think, at Georgetown as the head coach. So it's, you do get comfortable in an institutional setting like that, and that's, I think it's certainly the case for me, for sure.
Mm-hmm. So what did your parents do? Because I imagine they had a lot of influence on the academic side.
Yeah, I mean, it's, my father was a physician. He grew up in New England, went to Yale undergrad and Harvard med school, and my mom grew up in LA, and she went to Occidental in LA. So education was always very, very important to my parents. And that's at the end of the day, that's that bleed down for values is real. Your parents don't value a degree or college education, then you tend to follow suit. So I think we're really lucky to grow up in a house where that was a priority. And it shaped my pathway for sure. And the things I value, I've had a couple job offers from schools that aren't really the same kind of academic institution that I've been at, and it's interesting. It's like it doesn't really make me that comfortable. I'm very comfortable in the setting I'm in, dealing with the kinds of kids we deal with, and it would be a very different kind of thing. Not to say you couldn't do it, but you'd have to make sure that you're on the same page as your student athletes when you work with them. But I've been very, very lucky, because I think that my parents were very good at, and maybe, listen, maybe this is because I'm the youngest, but my parents kind of let you live and make decisions and deal with your decisions. And, I wasn't pushed through by a type A mom or dad, and I have to do this then in order to do that and do this. It's like I was allowed to make mistakes and make decisions, and my father was particularly someone that would sit here and say, well, here's an action, and here's a reaction to it. Here's what you did, and here's what happens when you do that kind of thing. And he would let you experience those things, and he would let you make some mistakes, and he would let you, go through life that way. And I think that was really helpful for how you develop. I was given a lot of autonomy to make a lot of decisions, and that's a little bit of a leap of faith as a parent, right? Like to say, hey, I'm okay watching you make a decision that I know is probably a bad one, but that's how you're going to learn from it, right? Versus me telling you to not make that decision. They were more inclined to say, like, well, if you think that's the right decision, make it and see what happens. So it's parenting by apathy, which is what I've adopted as my own method of parenting for my own kids. So
awesome.
Yeah.
So did you see that your older brothers, did they have that same kind of freedom of experimenting and finding out the results, or were your parents a little tighter on them since they were the first two?
They're probably tighter. My perspective is that they were pretty consistent though, with that. I think, I was able to watch them make mistakes and watch them succeed, at the same token, and follow very different career passions and life passions. My oldest brother is incredibly artistic and into music, and that path took him to Hampshire College, and then eventually to Cal Arts out in LA, and he's been doing a lot of fun things with that, but he's always been very musically inclined and artistic in how he's approached things. And then my other brother, my middle brother Andrew, so my oldest brother was 7 years older, and Michael was 7 years older. Andrew was 4 years older, and so Michael was almost too old to really hang out with me and mentor me, and it was like 7 years is a big gap. In
right.
terms of, hey, let me come along with you and do that with you. There's not that many things that you can really apply to.
Right.
I certainly wasn't going to be hanging out with him and his buddies. It's just too big a gap there. And whereas Andrew at 4 years was a little bit, it was a little bit closer, and so he was, and I really followed his lead into soccer. He was really the reason why I became a soccer player as a young kid. And he and his friends fell in love with the sport when they were 9, 10, and which meant I fell in love with sport when I was 5 or 6. And that's how this stuff happens a lot.
Mm-hmm. Did you play any other sports growing up, or was it just soccer?
Oh, I did. Yeah, I know. I did a ton. I love soccer. I love basketball. Those are my two favorites for sure. But growing up, I played tennis. I swam in the summers, which was incredibly difficult to do. So that only lasted so long. And, I tried and failed at baseball a couple times. You sort of just do stuff, right? I was always active. I loved sports. I really wanted to play football. And that was one of the few things I think my father said, no, nope, not going to let you do it. He's a physician.
Why was that?
He just thought that there's just too much room for significant injuries. And
right.
So that was the one thing I remember being so angry. I was like, I want to play football. I loved watching, the NFL and the Sundays, the LA Rams with my team, and I love that and this but they nipped that in the bud, which is probably a good thing because it let me get more into soccer at the end of the day. But it was really active, and I think that's a different thing from now to back then. This is back in the early 80s probably is when I was able to play all these sports, and it was fine, right? You didn't have to specialize in stuff, but I was incredibly active, but I did have some issues from it. I had a lot of surgeries in high school for things that didn't have anything to do with sport. I didn't have any ACL issues, or didn't have any of this. It's just I had a little condition in my knee, but actually it was in both my knees, but it was advanced in one of my knees that required pretty significant surgery. repair this. It was really a lack of blood circulation in my knee joint, and a chunk of bone and cartilage had just died and detached, and they had to pin it back and figure out how to make it all work again. And I was in a wheelchair for 6 months in the sophomore.
Oh, wow.
Because it was happening on my other knee, but it hadn't happened yet. So they drilled holes to improve blood circulation in the joint, but I had to be non-weight bearing, and it was really hard for me because I had evolved into a pretty good goalkeeper. I was a goalkeeper for soccer through middle school. I was pretty good, and then these things started popping up as freshman and certainly sophomore year of high school, where it was really disruptive and wasn't really able to play. And I was able to play basketball through my freshman year with a freshman team at school, and then that's out the window. I wasn't able to play anymore, and that crushed me. I loved playing soccer, loved playing basketball, and those things were taken away for better part of a year and a half in the middle of your high school career, and that was really tough. So I didn't get to play high school basketball. I'm not sure if I would have made the JV and then the varsity and all that, but I certainly would have liked to have tried, and then my high school career at the academy was the timing of everything was really whittled down to playing my senior fall. That was the only high school soccer I was able to play. And by that time, there was 2 other goalies that had been playing, for a couple of years prior. So 3 of us split the season 3 ways. And, so I played what amounted to 6 high school games, if you add it all up, in my high school career. But was trying to, get back into it. And the good thing is that my surgeon did such a good job that he got me back to feeling normal and being able to go for what it would have been my junior spring is when I started feeling like I was a person again. I could move and could run and do the things that I athletically was remembered being able to do. And that, at the end of the day, while very frustrating, I always got very lucky that it worked out for me to be able to play beyond that injury.
Wow. That's a pretty intense injury you had.
Yeah.
How did your parents support you emotionally during that time?
They were great. I mean, it's a hard process when you have that kind of a long-term injury. If you have an ACL injury or these things are significant because it's not a broken bone, which is put a cast on it and 6 weeks you're going to be good and away you go. Mm-hmm. And these are things that require an incredible amount of rehabilitation. It's not just the timeout; it's the working back during the timeout to getting yourself back to a place where you feel like you can compete, and that's the hard part, right? And so my injury was similar. It's like I had to do a ton of. I lost all the muscle and no muscle in my legs at that time. Like I could do the splits and I could do whatever I wanted to. I had no muscles to have to restrict me, which meant I had to build all that back. And and it's an incredibly thankless time, right? You're on a machine. You're with a therapist. You're doing reps and you're doing this, and it's hard and it's uncomfortable and it hurts and it's long and it goes on for a long time. And it's one of those things that you have to have, I should say it really helps to have, a reason to push and do that. And my parents were great. I mean, I had, they had to make the house wheelchair accessible. So my poor dad's out there, building a ramp with like 2 little steps up to, it was always a 1-story house, but they had little steps all over the place. So suddenly everything that had like 1 step up to the kitchen and then 2 steps out to the door suddenly had to have ramps to it, so I could wheel around the house and get to my bedroom and get to the kitchen. And they knew I was going to be recovering a lot. I had a series of surgeries. So I had always been like, I want a lazy boy recliner chair. And they're always like, no. And then suddenly like, okay, we'll get you a lazy boy recliner chair. You got to sit there. So, they did what really all they could, which is, much of what I was talking about before, they let me kind of be as motivated as I wanted to be in it. But they supported me. If I wanted to work hard, I was going to extra therapy. They would take me. Right. But it wasn't, they weren't driving me. I was always driven myself, right, to get back, because I really wanted to get back and play. I was hoping maybe I could get healthy enough to play basketball. I was never going to play basketball beyond high school, but it's like maybe I could get back to play basketball. Maybe I could obviously want to get back to play soccer, which is a sport I really love. And that was the motivator, and they just supported me along the way. They did, they were so supportive, and I think they hid the fact that they were sad for me very well. Like I don't remember them being, sad, because they knew how much I love sport. And I think as a parent, that would have been very, very hard. And I think about me with my kids. If any of my kids had gone through what I went through, I would have had a really hard time not being crushed for them. And so I think they were really sad, but I think they did a great job of not being sad in front of me, for me, right? They didn't let me feel sorry for myself. They just said, hey, what do you got? What's next? What do you got to do? Right? What do you want to do? Where are you? And then they said, hey, I got to get back and I want to play. I want to play soccer again. And then they said, all right, how do we help you do that? So they were great. I think they did that about as well as you could hope they could.
Yeah, sounds like it. And from experience as a coach, watching these athletes sometimes go through these severe injuries, they tend to learn a lot about themselves during that process. What was something that you felt that you grew from in an area of your life during that?
Well, I think it makes you appreciate, what you're not able to do. I think that's the thing is anyone who's been out for a long time for whatever reason, when those athletes come back, they don't take anything for granted anymore. There's not a single day or a single training session or a single game that's just not, you don't cherish just a little bit more than the guy who's never been hurt, and I think, there's, when we recruit players to Georgetown, the one thing that I always say it's really hard to suss out about a recruit is, are they motivated? Are they driven? What's really pushing that kid? Or are they just going to show up and go through the motions, and they punch a clock when they show up for practice, and they punch a clock when they walk out, and it doesn't really matter that much to them? Or is it something where they have that thing that just is eating at them to make them as good as possible and to grow and to get better? And I think you find that the people who've had sort of those long-term injuries tend to be highly motivated when they come back. They tend to be the guys who are going to work a little bit harder. They cherish it a little bit more. They understand, what it is. They understand it's a privilege to be an athlete playing competitively, in our setting here. That was certainly the case for me. I mean, when I was back and healthy, I was desperate to play. I didn't have so I recovered in time to play really my senior year. And so I played high school soccer, right? That was all that was kind of what you did. You played high school soccer back then, and then that was it. And then I was, in the summer before my senior year, I'd gone out to a camp at Dartmouth where my brother had played. Andrew was there before, so I knew him and the school and the team and the head coach there was a guy named Bobby Clark who I have a long mentorship relationship with. He was a head coach when I was assistant with him for 10 years. But he was a special individual, special coach that inspired everybody and you didn't want to disappoint him. And he was just one of those guys that you just like, I want to play for that guy. And I was lucky enough, I was healthy enough to get out and take part in the camp at Dartmouth in the summer before my senior year. And I did well enough that he said, hey, yeah, we'll want to recruit you to play here. And Dartmouth was a great school. And at that time was an emerging soccer power. And, to be recruited to a place like that with zero history, recent history of soccer. And in fairness, the coach had seen me before I got hurt. My coach had seen me as an 8th grader. And so he probably knew he would have remembered that I was pretty good at that time. But then it was like 3 years of nothing, right? Where you're like, well, but to be recruited to a program like that, and have the timing work out. Like, being in my seat now, it shouldn't have happened, right? It's so lucky, I don't for a second presume to not understand like how unbelievably lucky that timing was to work, and then to have a coach who say, "Oh, I believe in you, and you come on in here, be a recruited player." And so I committed to Dartmouth, and I applied early decision. I got in December of my senior year, and then I'm looking at the senior spring. It's like I don't have a team to play for. I wasn't on any teams. There was no club teams around. Mm-hmm. So my old team had all these great. It was a great team. I grew up with a fantastic group of players, and had a great club team. So did my brother, Andrew's team. This Sierra Vista Strikers team, they were called, had guys like Will Stedman, who went on to be a captain at UCLA, Timmy Gallegos, who went to UCLA, Jeff Sherman, who went to play at Richmond, a whole slew of guys who went to play at UNM. It was like this unbelievably special group of players that somehow all we're all the same age in New Mexico, and formed this fantastic soccer team in New Mexico, which in that time was like, New Mexico was not a soccer state at all. No real soccer presence in it. And in my era was the same, but I didn't really have a club team. The club team I grew up playing with had already had 2 established goalies in it, and that didn't make sense. And so I was like, I need to play with people in the spring before I go to college. So I started my own team. And so there was a coach, wow. There's a guy who's a teacher at the academy who played college. Actually played at Dartmouth. Who I knew him, and this guy named Vladdy Stanievich, and he had just moved out to start trying to teach. And I walked into, and he's been a coach for a long time since then. But I walked into his office. I said, Vladdy, I need someone to coach a team. Do you have any interest in coaching? And he was like, yeah, sure. So I said, all right, I need you to coach. So you're going to coach. And then I went through all of the kids I remembered being pretty good in these high school games we had just played. And I'm like, hey, do you want to play? And I literally called them all up. I found their numbers in the phone book. Yeah. Called them all up, and it said, hey, I just want to, I'm forming a team, and I thought you were pretty good, and do you have an interest in playing? We made this team of like 15, 16 guys. Wow. And it was great. It was great fun, so some of them were friends, and some were pretty good little players who just played high school, and that was it. And, but again, I think that was one of the things I attribute my parents to that. They're like, well, you got to play soccer, then you go make a team. Like they weren't on the phone doing that. They threw me the phone book and said, figure it out. Right. So I said, okay, let's see what I can do.
Wow. So you were recruiting for a team even way back then when you were in high school, and it's still your path today. It's amazing.
I hadn't thought of it that way, but yes, that would have been my first team I drafted together. That's right. Exactly.
That's awesome. So what was your career like at Dartmouth, and what did you do after that, playing wise?
Yeah, it didn't really play much. There was no real, and what I did know is I had a short shelf life. I did know that, a playing career after college was unlikely because of my knees. Like, I knew it was going to be, having a professional career was going to, at some point, was going to end. I always felt like I was on borrowed time with being a true, Division I athlete or a professional athlete. I wasn't convinced that was ever going to happen, but it, and I don't think I would have been good enough really to have a proper career that way, but it wasn't really available. MLS hadn't started. There's no real domestic league at that time in the early 90s to go. I did, my first year at Dartmouth, I didn't play a minute. I was a backup goalkeeper, which was fine by me at that time. I needed time to settle in, and was more than happy to understudy and figure it out. And the team I'd come into was fantastic. So I didn't, I think it at the core of it, I didn't really want to go in there and not be ready and let everybody down. Right. I was like, I don't think I'm ready. I don't want to go in there in a big game and let down this group of guys that, I revered. So I understudied for a year, and then and then really I played my sophomore year on. I became a starter for my sophomore year, junior year, senior year, and which was it was a great experience to do it. I had the privilege of being a teammate of this guy Jeff Cucinato, who was a goalkeeper from Wisconsin, who was the same year as me. So Jeff and I were competing for the starting job going into both of our sophomore years. And I thought Jeff was fantastic. I mean, he and I were so different that I admired all the things he did better than I did. And I did some things better than he did, but I was like, gosh, I wish I could, do that and that and that he does so well. And he might've said the same thing about some things for me, but it was, I remember going into the summer, into my sophomore fall in college being like, I don't know, I may not make it. I may be the backup to Jeff. And you run through preseason, and then the opening game, I got the starting, job for that first game. And we played at University of Hartford, and got smashed. We had a whole bunch of guys who left. Like, my class was a really special class of players in college at Dartmouth. And we were a big class, but we had all kind of understudied because we had understudied this other group of seniors who were wonderfully successful, and they all graduated. And so my sophomore year was this influx of all these young guys, a lot of freshmen and sophomores playing. And we're like, we don't know what we're doing. We're trying to figure it out. We're all young. And we played Hartford, and we lost like 4-1. And it was like, yeah, it wasn't good. So we got smashed. And I'm sitting there on the bus from Hartford back up to Hanover after the game, and I'm so depressed. I'm like, gosh, I don't remember any of the goals being like bad goals, but I was like, I did concede 4. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking, man, that's probably me. That's probably my chance done. Right. You don't lose 4-1 and then the next game, the other goalie's good. I mean, it makes sense. He's probably going to start. So I was sitting there feeling really sorry for myself on the bus and not sure what was going on and not sure what, and Bobby Clark, who's the head coach, came down and sat next to me on the bus and said, all right, big fella, listen, don't worry about it. You're the guy. You're my guy. Yeah. You're going to be the guy. And just, get on with it. You're going to be just fine. Right. And then he stood up and he walked back to the front of the bus. And because he himself was a goalkeeper, he understood exactly what I was going through at that time. And boy, what a difference that made, because from that moment on, that doubt that was tearing at me on the bus ride was just like, all right, I don't have to worry about that. I'm going to start the next game. He thought I actually played pretty well. But all of that, like that sort of split that can happen in an athlete when you're unsure of your status and your standing, you're unsure if you're going to start the next game, you're unsure if you're playing well, if you, all that kind of went away, and it let me just train and get on with it and try to figure it out, and it removed an entire psychological problem out of the equation. And we weren't perfect, but we figured it out. Actually, it was the best year we had in my 4 years. We got to the Elite Eight. And lost to Virginia in the Elite Eight. We won the Ivy League. We did all these things, and which we were never able to replicate, even with better teams. We didn't still have that same run, but that experience of going from not playing a second in my freshman year to trying to figure life out as a sophomore to I was the team MVP as a junior. I had a great season, but we as a team didn't have a great season versus my sophomore year. I was letting in goals all over the place, but we found ways to win, and it was this, that, and the other, and we won the league. To my senior, where I was a captain of a team that underachieved, right? So I had 4 very distinct years, which I think, to be honest, prepared me wonderfully well for coaching, because all of those had their own lessons to give me some empathy to relate to a lot of my players in a lot of different ways. And, if I'd come in and I was an all-star and played every minute of every game and was fantastic from minute one, I wouldn't know a whole lot about, the vast majority of my players and what they're going through. Or if I'd never played a minute, and that's the flip side of it. If I never played a minute for 4 years, then I wouldn't really know the pressures of performing in some situations that are hard, and hard on guys, and succeeding and failing in those situations. So I actually attribute the 4 years I had as being a perfect primer for coaching, because I really went through the whole thing in those 4 years.
That's great. When did you know that you wanted to be a coach?
I don't know that, right? Like I've always liked coaching. I've always sort of found coaching. Maybe coaching's always found me in a way. Like I coached my senior spring in college. I coached a local boys U15 club in Hanover, around Hanover, because I thought that would sound like fun, But that some of your weekends, your three weeknights a week are booked. When I was injured in high school, Doc Glidden, the old physics teacher, had his kid had 2 young kids, Hooter Glidden, right? He's coaching himself, and his brother, they had this team, and Doc Glidden didn't know anything about soccer, so he knew I played, and so he's like, hey, while you're not moving or doing anything, why don't you come out and coach? And so every time in my first job out of college was working in San Diego as an engineer, and just there's a girls team that was practicing in a park behind my apartment, and I finished a run and started talking to the team manager, and then a week later I'm coaching this girls U17 club team. It was super serious. Wow. And this on the other, I'm like, so and then after that year I was trying to get a master's degree, and I knew I was hoping to go to Stanford for this product design program, and I got accepted. And so my first thing I did was I sent all these letters in the mail, no emails then, right? You send all these letters to the coach at Stanford, the coach at Cal, the coach at Santa Clara, the coach at San Francisco, and said, hey, I'm going to be in the area. Do you need anybody to help? I would love to be, I was a goalie, maybe I coach goalies, and I didn't get any responses from anybody, of course. But it was something that when I think back on it, I just loved being around the game. And I loved, once I knew I was done playing, like coaching was kind of a natural thing to do. And it may go back in some ways to when you're out for that long, when you go back to that thing when you miss that much, that maybe was the seed to it all, where I just really realized how much I love the game and being around it. And, my way of staying attached to the game when you're not playing is coaching, really, at the end of the day. Right. And, yeah, for sure. And to be honest, the divine intervention is Bobby Clark, my old guy that I played for, took the Stanford job the exact same time I came in to start my master's program at Stanford. And he was like, oh, this is great. You can help me. I have someone I know, and while you're not doing your grad work, you can come in and help me coach the goalies and be an assistant.
Perfect.
I was like, great. This sounds fun. So it's always something I did. And then, once you got into it at that level, I was still always going to try to be an engineer. And good news was I wasn't talented enough really to do to be a hireable commodity out of grad school. So, but I was good at coaching, and I was having such a great time doing it. I loved working with Bobby and loved working with those kids. The kids at Stanford were just great kids, really fun kids. And you got to a point where I was interning as an engineer, and all I was thinking about while I was interning was coaching. All I was thinking about. And I know when I was coaching, I was never thinking about being an engineer. So it was just, the opportunity came up to be the top assistant in 1999, it would have been. So I would have been helping him for 3 years. And then I was really like, I have to, have a real job and start working. And so I'd worked as an engineer for a couple years, couple months. And then the top job opened up, and Bobby called and says, well, what do you want to do? And I'd just been married. Becky and I just got married in the fall of '98. And so I said, well, let me talk to Becky about it, because she thinks she's marrying an engineer. and I don't want to, I don't want to ruin that whole thing. So if she's not sure about how little money I'm going to be able to make as a soccer coach, then I have to think about it. But otherwise, if she's okay with it, then I want to coach. You know, and bless her heart, she was okay with it. Poor thing. So
That's
that
awesome.
was pretty easy. Yeah, it was a pretty easy choice.
Yeah. Amazing. So you found your way over to Georgetown as a head coach. What has that experience been like for you as far as leading young men and also recruiting young men into Georgetown?
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a lot to that question, right? And finding the kids that resonate with you. There's a lot of things that go with that. One is the right player, the other's a right student, and then the other one's the right kid. You know, and it's remarkable, you know, how influential the families are and the parents are. Right? We'll really want to figure out like the family dynamic, how involved the parents are really with that kid. And the reason we want that is you want the two things. One is you actually want my parents at the end of the day, right? If I'm projecting, it's like I want the parents to really want the kid to be at a good school, because I don't want these guys popping off and being a pro in a year or two, because you'll never get a degree if you do that. You want the mom and the dad who are going to really stress, get the degree, and then if you're good enough to be a pro, that'll happen. But don't run off prematurely because you're going to get an offer from someone. We as a family value this degree, and you need, you know, because if one parent is sort of like, well, boy, it'd be great if Junior became a pro, then suddenly the majority is the kid and one parent against another parent, and the majority tends to win those things. And so you want the majority to always be mom and dad saying, no, you're there for a degree, get it done, right? And be a pro if and when that time comes, right? And usually that ends up being the right pathway anyway. That tends to be the most successful pathway anyway. But you want those parents that are like that, so you recruit with that in mind, and then like my parents, you also want the ones who are like, when they come to Georgetown, when they drop them off, you don't really want to see them again until they graduate. You want that kid. You want that kid to go through the kids we have that the parents are really engaged and really involved and really worried about how kid's doing and they're always around the kid. Those kids have a hard time. They tend to have something that's holding that kid back historically, you know. And I've been coaching now for about 25 years. And the majority of parents do a really good job of it, but the ones that have a hard time letting their kids sort of do it and make mistakes, you get plenty of parents, I'm sure, really hate how much I play their kid, right? I don't play them enough. I don't start them enough. And the majority of parents have those emotions at some point, right? You have a roster of 25 guys, 30 guys, whatever it is, and 11 kids are happy, which means 11 sets of parents are happy, and then you have maybe 15, 16, 17 parents can't understand what's wrong with coach, right? The boy should be starting and playing. He's the best. And so you want, and those emotions are fine, but you want those parents to have that conversation just with each other, not with their kid, because they want the kid's got to go through it and figure it out. And so that recruiting is really important. And then the fun thing for me is we get boys, and then they leave as really independent men, you know, that can make hard decisions and have evolved and are great with time management and are emotionally way more mature than when they came in 4 years earlier. And that's really fun to see.
That's beautiful. So just to kind of give parents tips, you know, and focusing more on boys, because the girls' side is different as far as timing of recruiting. When should boys and parents start the recruiting process as far as reaching out to schools, and what should they be focusing on doing during their recruiting process?
Yeah, there's new rules that are put in place, which will maybe push the girls later now, which is good if it happens. But you know, because I have a daughter who's playing in college. She's a freshman in college, and she's playing, and you know, she committed as a sophomore, right? And it's like, whoa, you know. But that was that was kind of what was going on at that time.
Mm-hmm.
The new NCAA rules restrict us as coaches, for men, boys and girls, restrict us as coaches from calling a kid, texting with a kid, or now, which is the new stuff, is even calling or texting with a coach of a kid until they're going into their junior year. So for freshmen and sophomores, if we see a kid who is a freshman and the best player in the country, it used to be that you could call up the coach and say, "Hey, have Tommy give me a call because I want to talk to him, or I want to get him on campus and walk him around campus and do it." And so Tommy would call, and you'd have this great conversation with him, and you try to get him to campus, and then you could show him the team and watch him train and show him campus, and then Bob's your uncle, right? And now we cannot call that coach, and it's to say we're interested. We can't third party our way into the kid's life until theoretically summer before their junior year, and that junior year is really important for the top kid, the top athlete. That junior year is where a lot of the recruiting happens, right? So, but that doesn't mean that's where it starts. And so, as sophomores and freshmen, we get a lot of correspondence from kids. We get a lot of emails. What we can't do is email those kids back.
Wow.
Other than to say, "Hey, we can't email you back, but we got your information," or here's some camp information. That's it. It's generic camp information or nothing. And because they do still allow kids to come on and do camps, and so camps are actually pretty handy. I mean, it's how I got recruited. At the end of the day, as a player back in the day, it's still very relevant. And for certain schools, maybe more some than others, we use it heavily for our own situation for recruiting, and we keep the numbers tight and small so that we get to know all the kids really well, because we pull kids out of it all the time. And but the important thing for freshmen and sophomores as a family and as a kid is they need to start canvassing programs out there that they may be interested in. They don't even have to be interested. They might become interested in them. They don't even need to know if they are or not. But it does behoove them to send those emails to say, "This is who I am. This is what year I'm graduating." Really important they say that. "This is the team I play for. This is my number that I wear when I'm playing. This is my cell phone number. This is my email number. Here are my vitals. These are the tournaments I'm playing at." Because even though we can't contact those kids, we're still out and about looking at them. In particular, sophomores. We're still watching a lot of sophomores because we want to know what that list of kids are that we like, so that in the summer of their going into the junior year, we can the special kids that we found as younger kids, we can get them out to campus right away. We want to get them on and see a team play and get them into campus and get them because we know that a lot of schools are going to know the top guys and they're going to try to get them on their campus right away. And that first impression on the kid is pretty important. So if you're the first school that a kid visits, that can have a really lasting impact, right? I mean, you always remember your first girlfriend, right? And I got to think about which one the third one was and the fourth. I mean, I don't know if I've had that many. Maybe my fourth might be my wife. So that could be it. But
let's just stop. Yeah, it's just only been 3 or 4. All right,
it's 3 or 4. That's all I need. But
that's right, honey.
That's right. But but the first one you always remember, and there's a reason for that. So, it's nice to be one of the first ones. So while we're not able to communicate, we are actively watching, and we're trying to get kids that we like to camp. We're trying to see those kids play at tournaments, and so the communication kind of feels funny because it might end up feeling very much like a one-way traffic into a black hole, and the feeling can be like, well, we're sending all this stuff, but no one's getting back to me, so I'm just going to stop sending stuff. And they have to understand, it's like that's not necessarily the case. They should continue to hit coaches with where they're playing, and just understand that the coaches can't or really shouldn't be emailing them back with any real significant interest of any substance at all. But that's okay. It's just, where am I playing? How often can you see me play? And then see where it goes from there.
how do you feel about video? How much video do you and your assistants actually watch of players who send videos to you?
We don't do a lot. My assistants will watch a little bit more. I mean, video is good to have. Highlight clips are good to have. Full games are fine, but we get so many emails, Gabe, from players that, if we sat and watched a 4-minute video from every kid that sent us an email with a video clip in it, we wouldn't have time in our day for anything else. And so you have to kind of pick and choose. But the reason why it's kind of nice is if we keep and tag every email we get. So we have a database. So Gabe, you're a player. You send me an email. Great, we put it in. We send you a return basic email based on what your year is. But we keep your email. You send us another one. We keep that one too. So we compile in your digital file all of the emails you've ever sent us with all the links and everything else. So if I then see you play out in California, and I take a shine to you and I say, that Gabe guy was actually not bad. I go back in and I look at your file on my system, and I notice that you've sent me, a handful of videos. I'm going to watch those videos then for sure, right? And I'll kid's pretty good. Oh, he's able to play this position well. He's able to do that. But we're not really, and some coaches are different this way, but we're really fundamentally just don't have the bandwidth to screen videos of kids that we haven't seen yet. It's just not that realistic. Unless there's a reason for us to click on it. Unless there's something that's kind of like, we really need a goalie this year, and this guy plays for a good team, and he can send me his videos. Maybe you'll open up that one. But or if you happen to know, there's a connection to a kid or a kid's coach who's trying to get you to that I'm friendly with a club coach, and he sends me a kid with a video, or the video references the coach, and maybe you'll watch it to make sure that you have some feedback for that coach on the kid. Or if the kid's really good, then you can call the coach up and be like, hey, let's get this kid sorted out. It looks good. What's the story?
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like camp, seeing the player play are the two biggest factors, and then video kind of third. So for parents to not really prioritize that, although it's nice for you guys to have video, right?
Yeah, it is, and it's certainly worth doing, but it's not something you're gonna be like, we sent the video, everyone's gonna love my kid now. That's not going to be the case. So it's exposures, and it's exposures. It's my daughter's a really good example. She really wanted to go. She's lucky enough to go to the school she ended up going to, and really wanted to go there. And she, I know their staff probably watched her team play 2 or 3 times without really getting them to be interested in her, funnily enough. She went up to their camp. Okay, that was good. As a young kid, as a freshman. All right. And then it was probably the 4th or 5th time maybe they saw her play. But they saw her play in a game, in a weekend where she played very well against very good teams. And then suddenly the next week it's like, hey, let's set up a call. We thought you did great. She then went to the camp after that. So she had gone to their school's camp twice. They had probably seen her play, 8 to 9 to 10 times. And then it's like, yes, we want you to come to school here. So the number of exposures for her was very, very important, because at the end of the day, you're not sure what the moment, I have plenty of players on our team where I saw them play once or twice and they didn't, I thought they're okay, but they didn't really get me excited. And then they play in a game and they do some things where I'm like, that was pretty fun. Let me really dial into this kid. What was that about? Who's this little 5'0" player that keeps hitting these great diagonal passes? Oh man, let me start following this kid. Let me start watching this kid. And then, 9 months later, 12 months later, he's like, he's not 5'0" anymore. He's not huge, but he's growing, and he's still hitting these passes. And guess what? He's also really good in the air for what he is. And he's this, that, and the other. That's how these things happen a lot of times. It's usually not a flash in the pan moment where it's like, that kid's great. Let's get him. He's coming to school now. It's usually a more of a process. So the number of exposures matters.
So it's a marathon, not a sprint.
It can feel that way, and that's hard for a lot of families to manage, right? The duration, the lack of certainty, and the bottom line is the fact that they don't control what schools like them back. It's hard. It's hard for a lot of families, and it's just the nature of it, right? I mean, we'll have a lot of kids that we like that are close that we go, but we only end up with maybe 6 or 7. So what is it? What is it? That means there's 90% of the kids that we like don't even end up here. And so what is it? And let alone the numbers of kids that we don't see or that we saw, but we don't think we'd quite like that much or whatever reason. It's huge numbers. And the hard part is none of those players control that reaction from us about the kid. They don't control whether we really like them or not, whether we fall in love with them as a player or we just like them a little bit or we didn't even notice them in the game. That's the really hard part is it's hard not to have control for most of these families. And that's difficult.
Mm-hmm. They just need to keep doing what they're doing, essentially. Yeah. And trust, there's a lot of luck involved, and you got to know the landscape. You got to be prepared. You got to communicate well. You want to be on top of things. It's not just show up and play. It's send people that you want to have look at you at the info, and hopefully they get out to see you. But you just control what you can control, and just keep doing what you're doing, and see what happens from that. Something good will typically happen, but it might not happen quickly. It might take a little longer than you want it to, but at the end of the day, it should work out. And listen, at the end of the day, you do have to be good enough, right? So understanding kind of where you are is important, right? If you have aspirations to be at the best team in the country and you're at best, you're not even a Division III level player, well, you'll be disappointed for pretty much the entire recruiting process. So, right. But if you're a good Division III player and you know that, and you're dialed into those teams, it's probably going to work out really well for you at the end of the day. And it might take some time, but it will suss out the right way. Mm-hmm. What are some personality characteristics off the field that you look at when you guys are looking at players?
Yeah, you want guys to have good character, and you see that, you do see that at times on the field. I mean, there's a kid that we saw that was a fullback and we're looking at that was being heavily recommended. This kid could be a pro and this and the other. And he's like, yeah, he's pretty good. But we watched him lose a game and we watched him march off the field and smash a signboard and then realized he left something on the bench. So he marched back across the field and not shake anyone's hand. Like he didn't shake the referee's hand. He didn't shake any opponent's hand. He didn't want to talk to his own coach. And we're just like, no, we're not. I don't care how good that guy is. That guy's a problem. Right? He doesn't handle people well. He doesn't respect the people he's around well. Right. And the high character guys, I mean, my favorite story is this kid, Keegan Rosenberry, who's playing with the Colorado Rapids. He's starting right back for the Rapids. Was a local kid from the Philadelphia area, sort of Pennsylvania. And we had seen his team play a lot. We liked him a lot as a player. And, but he wasn't big. A lot of people liked him, but had questions about things. All these coaches from all these summer schools he was looking at, we were looking at him. We liked him a lot, but, we were like, okay, he's got these things. And I went out to a tournament in Las Vegas, saw his team play there, and he was a captain of his team. And they played a game. And after the game, the coach has them in, they're talking, and then they all go walking off to the vans to go back to the hotel. And Keegan was walking by the bench that they were sitting on and looked over and noticed that there were Gatorade bottles and cups all over the bench. Right? And you could see exactly what was going through his head. I was still sitting there because I was watching. I was waiting for the next game, but I was really paying attention to Keegan because he also had some other teammates we were looking at too. And some of these other teammates just went walking right past. In fact, the whole team did, including the coaches. And he stopped, and you could see it. He kind of like took a big sigh and a big breath. He's like, oh. Put his bag down. And he walked over and he just picked up all the trash and put it in the giant waste paper basket right next to the bench, of course, right? He picked it all up and put it in. He didn't ignore it. He didn't yell at his teammates to come back and help him. He just did it. he recognized like this was us. This was our doing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take care of this. Right. And when he did that, I was like, that's a kid we have to get. Right. He became a kid we liked too. That's a kid we have to get. And I
just from picking up cups.
Just from like, just from his sense of what he really needed to do. What's the right thing to do? And you're just like, that's a small window into just how that kid's probably built. And those cups are just, that him stopping to do that is going to manifest itself in so many other positive things for him and the team and how he's going to, and it was, he's just a fantastic kid, a fantastic person. And, he's been in the full national team camps, and he was the 3rd overall draft pick by the Philadelphia Union. He was like, all those things kind of come in, but all of those things, I'm not saying that's why he was a successful pro, but I am saying that's why we wanted him, because he helped us create a culture that was going to then permeate through everyone else. Like that, we wanted that type of kid times 27. That's what we wanted. And we worked hard to try to figure those things out. And so when you see those little moments, those things tend to be the little good moments, and the little bad moments tend not to be unlucky or lucky. They tend to be little windows into what you're going to get.
Awesome. It's a lot for parents to think about, I think, right there.
Yeah. Tell your kids to be good citizens. I tell you, it's important.
Yep. So I have some, I call them lightning round questions, but you're welcome to take as much time as you need.
Okay. I'll try to be brief.
All right.
I can go long.
Okay, here we go.
On answers, so I'll try to be brief.
Okay. So if you weren't a goalkeeper, what position would you have played?
What I tell you? What I want to have played? The difference.
What would you have wanted to have played?
Attacking midfield for sure. Attacking midfield or forward, one of the two. Yeah,
Score some goals. Huh?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Attacking mid. But I would have been a great passer as well. Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. What is a Hoya?
Hoya is that's not a lightning round question. It's a very complicated one. Nobody really knows the answer. Hoya is part of the phrase Hoya saxa, which is a Latin phrase for what rocks, which people aren't super sure. In essence, a Hoya isn't a thing. It's a word. So, but it manifests itself as sort of Georgetown Hoyas, but it's something that they like back in like the early 1900s would chant Hoya Saxa, then that became Hoya. Hoyas. Yeah.
Very interesting. Favorite professional soccer team?
Professional soccer team? Oh man, that my roots lie in Manchester United, but I find them to be a little soulless just now. And how do you not love Liverpool? How do you not love Liverpool right now?
Yeah, they're fun to watch.
Yes, absolutely.
For sure. If you weren't a college soccer coach, what would you be doing professionally, and why?
Well, if I could have been hired as a product designer, I would have been working for Nike or Adidas, designing some revolutionary shoe or headband that kept sweat off your body forever or something. I don't know, something like that. Yeah, that's what I was trying to do when I got rejected from any of those job offers. So I would try that again. I'll try to figure that out.
Nice. So kind of a follow-up question, what's the most impactful product design of this century that you've seen?
Ooh, to be honest, it would be hard not to think digitally on a lot of that stuff. Like the iPhone, the smartphone concept has been unbelievably impactful, and that sort of subtle interface, but how that's been put together and how that's been integrated with apps and the internet and everything else is that's the old Steve Jobs. People don't tell me what they want; I tell them what they want, because they don't know what they want yet until I show them what it is they want. And that was him with the iPhone. And that would probably be it.
Yeah, it's definitely impacted my life for sure.
Yeah, unfortunately, everyone's right. I'm staring at it all the time.
I know. What's the toughest thing about being a men's college soccer coach?
That's a hard question because I love it. The toughest thing the toughest thing. I mean, I think one of them is personally, it's the time, time away from family. I think is the hardest thing. We work unbelievable hours. We're 7 days a week from August through December, and you just you as a Division I coach, the amount of time you spend on the road recruiting, the amount of time you spend on the road traveling, dealing with all the issues you have to deal with and everything else. It's not a 9-to-5 job, and I think that's pretty clearly for me the hardest thing is my wife carries a lot of the burden on how the house is being run and what the kids are doing and how they're getting from A to B. And you miss a lot as a parent, which I regret.
Mm. What's your favorite part about being a parent?
Just spending time with the kids. I mean, they're so damn fun. I have three great kids. Morgan's a freshman in college. Teddy's a junior in high school, and Maya's a freshman in high school. And like they're born with these personalities that they have, right? Like they really are. They come out with these personalities, and I think it's been a lot of fun seeing them all, grow into young men and women. And it's the same thing as kind of, you deal with this 4-year period with our players. You see how they mature over those 4 years. It's like, golly, you see these young babies turn into fun little guys, run around, turn into these soak up every bit of information you can, go through friend groups and go through trials and tribulations, but they it's just fun going on the journey with them.
That's awesome. So what kind of advice, this doesn't have to be a lightning round question here, but what kind of advice would you have for parents who are raising athletes today?
I think, I don't know, from going through it myself as well, but two things. One is it's not as important as you think, right? The high level, top overachieving parents and kids that want to be national team at whatever sport, let they say when the kids are playing like at 10 or 11 years old, if it's your oldest kid, the mom and dad always feel like that's the most important thing going on. Like this tournament, if we don't win, it's all, everything's ruined. And then 2 years later, 3 years later, you look back at that time, you're like, man, look how little these guys were. Yeah, that little tournament and all this. But now it matters. You're 14 now, and this is the big deal, right? And then you 2 or 3 years later, you look back and you're like, man, they're a senior in high school. Remember back when they were 14 and we thought it was such a big deal, and it's not. But now it's a big deal, right? They're seniors in high school and they're getting ready to go to college, and it's always a big deal, but it's not a big deal, right? And so let the kids enjoy playing, enjoy watching it, enjoy supporting it. But there's something. I call it the crazy pill. All parents, when their kids become athletes and compete in any sport, almost all of us take the crazy pill, and we lose our minds. We can't see things straight. All referees are horrible. All coaches don't know what they're talking about. All opponents are terrible, conniving people who are out to hurt their kid or their teammates, and it's like, try not to take the crazy pill. Try to just let them play and enjoy it, and not put the pressure of the winning and the losing, and try not to be screaming at other parents and referees, and just enjoy the game and recognize it's just, at the end of the day, you're probably not seeing it right, even though you're 100% sure you are. Just understand you've taken a crazy pill. It's best just to be quiet and let the game happen and let the kids play, and then talk about it with them after and laugh about it or yell about it or whatever you want. But try not to take the crazy pill, and let them do what they want to do. Let them, if they have a love for it, a drive for it, that'll come. That's not going to come from mom and dad telling them how much they need to be playing and this and they're great. The kid will tell them if they love it, and recognize that. And again, that's from my upbringing is I think, my parents never told me that I should be out playing harder and actually practicing more and doing this. I went out and just did that on my own. And they supported me though. Like they made it possible for me to do extra camps if I wanted to, or get out to a team and do this. So I was really blessed with that way. But support your kids the best you can, but let them develop their own passion for it, one way or the other. And if it's not there, they can play for a bit and they'll move on to something else. But you're not going to instill that in them if it's not there already.
Awesome, powerful words. Powerful words. I appreciate your time, Brian. Good luck with everything, with the family, especially. Much love to you guys, and enjoy the rest of your career at Georgetown and wherever it may lead you.
All right, I appreciate it, Gabe. Thank you. Thanks for the time.
All right, I hope you enjoyed this episode with Brian and got a lot out of it. There was some amazing stuff in there, so I urge you to please share this episode. The recruiting stuff he spoke about is so crucial for people to hear, especially people with children who are playing sports in high school and want to play in college. And remember, it's not just the stuff on the field that counts, it's the stuff off the field. And parents, you have a huge responsibility in that, in the kindness that your children show. And it's really a lot about role modeling, right? The kinder you are to people and to your child and to yourself especially, then the kinder they will be to themselves and to others and the earth as well. All right, hope you enjoyed. Stay tuned for those next few episodes coming out, next interviews I have. Some really exciting ones as always. All right, much love to you and many blessings.